Okay, so I'm joined here I'll be recording live. Yep. So I'm recording here with Donal Mulchay, and I'm delighted to have Donal on here just to offer us some advice and some practical tips on time management and winning your day and ultimately winning your week and winning your life as well. So thanks for joining me, Donal.
Great to be here, Adrian.
Excellent stuff. So Donal has a slide and he's going to do a little bit of a presentation here, okay? So if you want to share your screen, Donal, we can get cracking and I'll knock it over to you.
Brilliant. Okay, are we good to go, Adrian? Yeah.
We are,
See
of
the
course,
screen?
yeah.
Okay, excellent. So, look, firstly, Adrian, how this has come about more than anything else is, look, we were having basically a few chats around values, as you do, Adrian, and about how potentially we can maybe improve our own situations. And I think we're in strange times at the moment. We're in the middle of a COVID-19 crisis that I think most people are aware of. And I suppose it's giving us time to maybe reflect on where we are at the moment and maybe how maybe we could do things a slightly little bit better. And maybe, as Adrian, you put it so well, maybe win our day. So what I'm going to share is a couple of slides that I share with various people through my work. And I suppose where I've maybe built up a couple of these tips and tricks down through the years. Some have worked for me, some haven't worked for me. And there's something that I suppose, look, I'd suggest people would try out, and maybe some might be applicable to themselves. And if they get some success out of it, that's absolutely brilliant. So to kick it off, Adrian, when we were talking, you said maybe I might do something around time management. So when we talk about time management, to me, there's 24 hours in a day, and that's a very, very simple statement for anyone to say. But to me, it's more around self-management than time management. So take the two of us for a minute, Adrian. Like, you probably sleep 7 or 8 hours a day, so we're awake maybe 16, 17 hours a day. So we have 16 or 17 hours, and what we do with that is entirely up to ourselves. So if we actually learn how to manage ourselves, that should essentially manage our time, and that will become clearer as we go forward with a couple of slides. So to kick it off, there's a really good guy called Jim Rohn. This man has passed on, Lord mercy him. But he had some very good insights on how to maybe to run your life, or maybe to put a little bit of clarity on what you're actually doing. And he said, look, you either run the day or the day runs you. And I would have that stuck up in my office at times, because there is times I find that the day is running me, and there 2 o'clock in the day going, what have I actually done? Where am I? Gee, because Almighty, I feel that I've only an hour's work done, but all of a sudden the day gets ahead of you, and that happens. However, you're trying to reduce that happening as much as you possibly can. And everyone has a different scenario. You could be working a scenario whereby your day is planned out. I am working in a scenario whereby I'm self-employed, and I suppose that there's a lot of change and a lot of variety in what I do. So the first step for me, I suppose, is self-awareness, and I suppose it's getting understanding who you are yourself, and what you like doing. Do you like structure? Do you not like structure? Are you somebody who likes to maybe get up early in the morning and actually find that they're most productive maybe from 7 to 10 in the morning? Or are you a night owl? Are you somebody who actually clicks into gear 8:30, 9 o'clock at night and does the most productive work from maybe 9 to midnight? Personally, myself, I work best in the morning. So if I get up early morning, maybe go for a run or do something, bit of physical activity, and I get into work, then I find that I do my best work. I do my most difficult work first thing. I find at night, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, my energy levels are waning, and there's stuff that might take me 2 hours to do at night time, and I can do it in 20 minutes first thing in the morning. So again, it's about finding what works best for yourself, what type of person you are. And again, look, that's pretty self-explanatory. So exploring your own styles and having a little bit of awareness about yourself and what you actually like doing. This is a slide, I think you can get it off the internet. It's something that I would really place a lot of focus on. So just take, for instance, you're somebody who might be struggling to manage your time at the moment, be it at the weekend, and you might have a couple of kids, you're juggling a part-time job, a full-time job, you're trying to get the lunches ready in the morning, you're trying to put in a bit of training. It can be really difficult, and sometimes it can be quite exhausting. So if you can actually sit down for a moment and actually do a little bit of an audit of where your time goes, and if you write down maybe the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 things that you do on a daily basis, and figure out, okay, what of that list, where do these key things that I do, where do they actually fit into? So for instance, we'll explain this very, very simply. There's 4 quadrants. So there's something that's really important and urgent. That means it's top priority. That goes into this area here. Something that's not urgent right now, but it's still very important to do. And we'll give examples of that down the road. But you don't have to do it right now in the day, or you don't have to do it this week, but over the course of the year, it has to be done. There might be planning something, but it has to be done, but it's not urgent. So it can go into quadrant 2. This is where it gets a little bit more hairy. So there's stuff that's urgent, but not important. So that might be the child falling over, and it might be after falling on their face and hands. You have to pick them up, but you know what? 9 times out of 10, and the way I rear them anyway is they get up themselves fairly quickly and they're grand. But you have to go to them if they're calling you if they're a small child. And then this is the time waster quadrant. So it's not urgent and it's not important. And I think there's a classic one here. It says internet surfing. How much time in the day do we all spend inside here? Scrolling and rolling. At the moment, like how many of us are getting all these very funny WhatsApp messages? How many, like if you actually sat back, all these funny WhatsApp stuff's coming through. Yeah, great and all that. But sometimes you don't have time to have a conversation with maybe a loved one, but we're too busy stuck on our phone. So how much time genuinely do we spend on Facebook, on Twitter? Rubbish really, what I would say it probably is, but it's nice to maybe have a bit of fun inside it. But I'll be spending maybe an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day. And especially if you're with Apple, there's a great app on your phone that you can actually check, and it will absolutely shock you the amount of time that we spend. And that's quadrant 4. So it's really about figuring out what's important and urgent, what's not urgent and important. And this is usually the stuff that gets kicked down the road because it doesn't have to be done right away. And there's no one shouting us to get it done, but it's really important stuff. It might be financial planning or planning your future, planning your future career, but it's really important it's done, even though it's not urgent. And again, this stuff here, not important and urgent. And this is the absolutely trivial activities, the rubbish stuff. And like, I suppose just one thing I would say here, and again, this is just my own experience, there is some things that just don't get done. And don't be hard on yourselves. Like there's lots of stuff that just doesn't get done that I would like to do myself personally in my own business or my own private life, but it's just not going to get done. I think when you accept that you're not going to be able to get around to everything, I think almost a sense of relief comes over you. So that for me, it works for me. And that's my story. Maybe Adrian, you might just pop in there because I know you have a lot going on as well and you're spinning a lot of plates.
Yeah, and I suppose it's interesting enough that you opened up with self-awareness, and everything starts with self-awareness, doesn't it? Because in many ways awareness is the precursor to change. Otherwise, if you're trying to beat a square peg through a round hole, then eventually you'll just end up, you know what I mean, with nothing working correctly, if that makes sense. Like, to me, like, we all have different personality types, and I see this when I give programs to people, right? So I could have back squat on a program, okay? Some people are very future orientated with their thinking, so I'll hand them their program and they'll look at it and they'll see back squat, and straight away they will start assimilating that in their own minds, and they'll start thinking, right, back squat, that's going to help me with my vertical jump. My vertical jump is going to help me with me fielding a ball, and in 6 months down the line, I'm going to see a performance benefit and a positive outcome from that. More people then are very much stuck in the past with their personalities, and they'll see back squat and they'll say, oh Jesus, the last time I done this I was sore for 3 weeks and I'm going to be sore again, and other people then are just, they're present and they don't really care and they don't really want a program. They just want to be entertained for that hour because the here and the now is what's important to them. So I certainly do see that even on simple things like programming for people. I think that, me personally, environment shifts is a massive thing for me. Like I'm more productive. Like, I know we're all creatures of habit, but when I shift my environment, I'm certainly get a shift in productivity. Like, because I do think that movement creates movement, and a change of environment gives you a different energy. So like what I try to do once a week is I'll try to just get to, a library or a different place with a different surroundings. Because what I find is when I'm at home or when I'm above in the gym, invariably people are going to call and people are going to interrupt you these times, like, you know what I mean? And that's just the nature of possibly an Irish culture as well, you know what I mean? And, you know, we're a little bit more inviting than many other cultures. And, you know, a home is a home at the end of the day, and people call them just
Absolutely.
the way, you know. And in terms of the last little thing that kind of bounced off me there was when you were saying like internet surfing, and it's amazing, like there is people being paid millions, well, it's probably not millions, collectively millions, but individually thousands, just to come up with the next bit of clickbait that pulls us down another little alley just to take our time. Absolutely, yeah. And like there was a time where the war was, you know what I mean, it was for land, it was for, you know what I mean, masses of land, then it was for spices in Venice, then it was for gold. Now the real war is on our attention. The real war now is our attention. You know, we nearly drowned in information now, because where there was a such thing as, was it 6 degrees of separation, was it 5 degrees of separation, whatever it was. Now it's probably 1 degree. If you know, if you wanted to, not that you would, but if you wanted to contact Donald Trump tomorrow morning, you could probably tweet Donald Trump, and the chances are that, you know, one person would see it and you could get it directly to him. So in one way, we have this unbelievable opportunity with social media and with the internet. But unfortunately, with that, it comes hand in hand with a massive opportunity just to waste time. And you know what I mean? There's algorithms, there's, you know what I mean, people paid a lot of money to try to pull us down to waste that time.
No, Adrian, you actually said something there that actually tweaked something. You said around creating boundaries, and I think that's really important when we're talking about time management, self-management, because if we leave ourselves open to, I suppose, people communicating with us, because if there's something we're going to talk about later on around a focus time and really focusing in on what you need to do at certain times of the day. But when you're in focus time, you have to create those boundaries around you that people cannot cross, so they cannot interrupt. However, if you're going to a cafe over in Kilmallock, for instance, and if you're doing really focused work, you haven't created the boundary. Because somebody's going to walk in, hey, Adrian, how are you doing? Sit down, think you're in a social setting, and have a cup of coffee with you. So it's about creating the right environment and the right boundaries. So you go to a place where you're not known, or you sit at home in your office and create that boundary. So it's really important that you do create those boundaries when you are trying to manage yourself and create that time management process.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, so I suppose that's really important. Again, look, any of these slides that I put up here with yourself, Adrian, I'll pop them onto, and you can bang them out to whoever you want. These aren't, there's no copyright in these slides. They're all, you can get them all online. So I suppose this brings me then, I suppose, to around, and this is just more to trigger people's thought process. So I'm not preaching here today. I'm just going to trigger some of your thought process. So when we're talking about managing the time, I think it's really important to look at doing the right things. So we can be very efficient at doing the wrong things. So take, for instance, somebody likes at work, doing a particular task at work. We can become really, really good at it. But if it's the wrong thing to be done, well, then we're actually not being effective in our workplace environment. So take, for instance, if it's sending out emails to clients, that's something that we like doing, and you're a marketing type person, you can send out loads of emails, you like doing it. However, if part of your job remit is to go through the financials of the actual business, and you don't do that, well, then you're actually not being effective at your job. So the key thing for me is that when you're looking at your list, your roles for the day, or your tasks for the day, or what you're trying to achieve for today, are you doing the right things rather than doing things right? So there's a real distinction coming there. So we bring it back to sporting terms. So take, for instance, I know Adrian, ourselves, we speak about sport quite a lot. So take, for instance, you have a centre forward on the field, and the centre forward's role is to manage, he's 3 or 4 things to do. It's to manage the centre back, it's to win ball in the half forward line midfield, and it's to give good ball in to the corner forward, the full forward line. So that's his role, 3 things. However, if the centre forward decides to go back into the full back line and decides to become an outlet for the goalkeeper and decides to help out his back line and is really good at it, he's doing things right. But is he doing the right thing? He's not. He's not doing what he's supposed to do. So is he efficient at what he does? Absolutely. He's really good at it. But is he effective? No, he's not. Because he's at his most effective at centre forward. So it's a really important point. Where are you spending your time? and is it efficient or is it effective? And again, look, anyone's clarity on that, we'll go into more detail on that. So does that make sense, Adrian?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a quadrant that we often use within strength and conditioning, right? So you have, in terms of how you want to profile a player, okay, so you have fast movers, slow movers, fast thinkers, slow thinkers, right? There was a time in sport where a slow mover and a fast thinker could do a job, right? So you could think of, the lad who, wasn't the most athletic, but he had a really good mind, right? But the way the game is evolved now, especially in GA, at an inter-county level, at a top level, those lads are few and far between because the demands of the game from a physical standpoint have just gone through the roof, right? In an ideal world, you have fast movers, fast thinkers, right? But what you never want is you never want a fast mover and a slow thinker, because he's an energetic fool and he can do an awful lot of damage, right? And I think it kind of ties into the point you're making there.
100%. And again, look, we all have the analogy where it's like the dog going round and round and round and round in a circle, chasing his tail. Yeah, he's flying it around. He's loads of energy, but what's his output after?
Yeah,
it's very, very poor. So again, look, it's just something that when you're looking at your day and where your time is going, is it just being efficient? It's something that you shouldn't be doing, or are you actually doing the right thing and being effective? So that's the point we're just trying to make there. Another point, and most people who have seen this particular principle, it's called the Pareto principle, the Pareto rule. 20% of your time gives you 80% of your results. And conversely, 80% of your time gives you 20% of your results. Now, it's not an exact science, but it does apply. And I'm sure Adrian will give an example in sport. But I just find in business, more often than not, what I will find is that 20% of my revenues from my customers will come from 80% of my customers, but 80% of my revenue will come from a key 20% of my customers. And that to me, I've seen it myself with my clients, that when I focus in on some of the real key clients, I get very large revenue from those people. And if we apply it to home life or your own particular life that you're working at the moment, 20% of my tasks are your priority. So 20% of my work achieves 80% of my results, and 80% of my work achieves only 20% of my results. So again, that applies to health and fitness, and Adrian might talk about that in a minute. But for me, in the work environment and in the home environment, it's really important to figure out where you're getting the return on your investment. Maybe Adrian, you might just share something there.
Yeah, so there's a principle in we'll call it in training, a principle of training. It's called the minimum required dose. Okay, so what is the dose, the minimum required dose to give you maximal results? Okay, and I suppose for years we've always been told that you embrace the grind and that harder is better, and even go back to, you know what I mean, if it's not hurting you, then you know what I mean, it's not working, which is illogical. Like, I think just from an exercise standpoint, we rate the effectiveness of exercise on its ability to create fatigue, its ability to create sweat, its ability to create soreness, or how novel it is. And if it's any one of the four of them, then it must be good for you, which is ridiculous concept, because anyone can make you tired, but not everyone can make you better. Like anyone, you could take a 6th class child and you could say, right, I want you to train me. They'll make you tired. They'll say, run up and down there 40 times and don't take any breaks. That's making you tired. Might necessarily be making you better. And we go back to the 80-20 rule. Even like people think that I'm quite odd in this respect, right? But I try for the much of my life to be as minimalist as I can, right? So what I notice is, like, use the example of your wardrobe, right? So like, you possibly wear 80%, you know what I mean, of 20% of your clothes, right? You know what I mean? And then there's this big chunk of your clothes in your wardrobe that you never wear, or that you minimally wear. And I just think that when you have this, you know what I mean, less possessions, then you will value what you do have, and it also eliminates more decisions and more time again. Like, I can go to my wardrobe, and it's not that I have no clothes or anything like that, but the truth of it is that my decisions are quite simple, because it's not like I'm burdened with them. Same as, if you have 2 to 3 biros around your house, you'll mind the 2 to 3 biros. You know what I mean? You won't just randomly fire them all over the place. I've always seen it that if people buy multi-packs, they get through them faster. Like that's that's a known fact that, you know, if people buy 6 or 7 of one thing, you just eat more, you just consume more, and that's what makes the wheel go round in many ways as well. You know, it's like Pancake Tuesday. That stuff starts in January. Like, and people are eating pancakes months before. You know, it's not about Pancake Tuesday. It's pancake bloody, you know, Christmas. You know, so I just think that the less choices we have to make,
Correct.
the more we can minimalize things. Right? It's not that you're going without. But like what it also does is, you know, it just makes you a little bit more grateful for what you do have as well.
Yeah, no, very valid point. And I think that what you just said about choices there, Adrian, when we touched on it in a minute, is about habits, about creating really good habits around your lifestyle. That ties into self-management and time management. But this side here, I suppose, is something I don't take credit for. It's from Dan Sullivan, the entrepreneurial time system that he's created. He's called a strategic coach. He's based in Canada. I would follow some of his stuff and find some of his stuff really, really good. So I would highly recommend him, Dan Sullivan. But one of the concepts that he preaches, and which I would work off from time to time, is having a focus time, buffer time, and free time. Now, he talks about creating focus days, buffer days, and free days. So creating so many of those days in the week. But if you just bring that concept back into your day as such. So I spoke earlier about me personally, my style would be to get the harder stuff done early in the morning. I'm at my most focused. I have my most energy. I find I can attack the day in that way. Whereas some people can have their focus time late at night. They're night owls. And I know one particular individual, she's at her most productive at maybe 11:30 to 2 in the morning, which is incredible. However, she is not a morning person and someone you don't want to meet first thing in the morning. So we all have our own styles. But for me, an example of having focus time, buffer time, or free time, a focus time would be absolutely non-interrupted time. So it would be phone off, phone in the drawer, no kids coming in, no work colleague walking in on your particular project. The door is closed. You tell people, I need 2 hours here of absolute silence, no interruptions. And you'll find that you get really, really good. You can train your brain to do a serious amount of work in that time. So that's focus time. The buffer time is whereby you tend to be maybe doing less priority tasks. So it might be to fire off a couple of emails that mightn't be that important, that don't take a huge amount of thinking around. It might be make a few phone calls back, drop a couple of texts, drop into the WhatsApp for the under 10 team or this or that or the other. But you're multitasking. So it doesn't require a huge amount of brain power, but you're getting lots of different stuff done at the one time. And free time then is, look, I'd be a big believer in this. Now, I don't always do it, but I think it's a brilliant concept. The whole idea of having free time. So it's like without technology, you're shutting the door at night, you're taking no phone calls, you're not popping out to look at Facebook, you're not popping out to look at Instagram. You're actually present. So you're having the dinner, or you're having the time with the kids, or you're having the time with your partner or whoever, or your friend. You're going to a coffee shop and you get the phone and you put it down, and that's it. And you're engaging in that conversation. That is free time. So you have nothing else going on in your head. You de-stress, you declutter. You may only have 10, 20 minutes free time a day, a week. I don't know how much free time that suits your lifestyle. But having that free time, I call it thinking time as well. It's great to have that. So if you actually look at your day and just do a little bit of an audit on your day. So maybe you have 16 hours in your day. How much genuine time are you on focus? How much time are you actually on buffer time, where you're multitasking, you're doing a whole host of things? How much free time do you actually have? It's a really good one. And there might be times where you have no free time. There might be times where you're incredibly focused and things change, but it's an important part of the whole self-awareness process again. So that's just something that I would place a lot of value, a lot of credence on. I suppose moving on then to actually tracking what you do and to maybe getting some, I suppose, encouragement. I don't think people should track stuff just to beat themselves over the head. I personally would track my time and track my days to encourage myself to say, do you know what, I had a really good day, or I did a lot of good work today. So if you're going to track your day, having something as simple as a diary, I'd be a big believer in that. Yeah, have your diary. You can track your appointments, track the things you have to do, whatever system works for you. However, I personally would use Google Calendar. So I was showing this to you, and we were having a chat about it yesterday. I would have, like anybody else, there's trainings, there's matches, there's what your partner does, there's meetings, there's a whole host of stuff that you're trying to juggle at the one time. And I would put all those into my diary. And I put it into the diary for one reason and one reason only. And that is to take the stress out of, as much stress and anxiety out of my lifestyle as I possibly can. Because I know it's in the diary. I don't have to think about what's coming up 2 and 3 days later. So this is a very important, I suppose, technique around time management. Like when we're trying to manage our time, that can create stress, create anxiety, and that's not good. So we're trying to remove as much of that as we possibly can. So for me, I'm a massive believer in the Google Diary or Google Calendar or whatever form of calendar, some form of online calendar. And planning that out to start of the week. So you're sitting down on a Sunday evening with your partner, with your boss or whatever on the Monday morning, and figuring out what actually would be a good week. So if I did X, Y, and Z, because you're not going to get everything done, you can't put your hands around the world. So if I say to myself, what actually would be a good week for next week? Okay, I'll fit X, Y, and Z in. I can do this. I can't do this. I definitely won't do this. And slot it in. And you'll see to yourself, you know what? I have so many hours in the day. This is all I can do. I can't do any more than that. And if somebody comes calling, then in case agent says, okay, Donal, can you do this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night? Sorry, agent, I can't, because actually I have the blocks of time booked off here. I can do it maybe next week or the week after. But it gives that little bit of empowerment. And I think that's really important here. You're back taking control of your situation. You're back driving your bus. Somebody else isn't coming from the outside and they are actually dictating and telling you what to do. Because there will be times whereby you'll have to respond to emergencies. Absolutely. But more often than not, we go back to the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, you should be in control of what you're doing with your time. Adrian, do you want to maybe add something there?
Yeah, I suppose, like, just speaking from my own previous experience, I believe reflection is a very important thing, right? So, not that I do it every week, because I can't say I do, but I would reflect or audit, or whatever term you want to put in it. And possibly my biggest downfall was, trying to do too many things at once, and if you try and catch 2 rabbits, you won't catch any rabbit, so I'd often start a project and I'd say, right, this is my focus for X block of time. And next minute, halfway through it, get sidetracked onto another one because I know my personality type is I'm creative. That's just me. I'm always looking ahead. I'm creative by nature. I think ideas are currency. I think that even, what I mean, when I'm off with Gav or stuff, it's always an adventure. I'm always trying to, the mind is always working like that. So therefore, from an organizational standpoint, because I have that bias towards creativity, this would serve me very, very well. But then what I end up doing is I have 2 to 3 calendars. So I have one calendar. So it's almost like I'm cheating on calendar 1. And that's just being honest, so I don't think I'm the best person to give advice on this.
There's no help for you, Adrian. but it's you touched on something very relevant there. We went back to what we had at the start about personality and your profile, and what's your core. Your core is to be creative. So I suppose this is the challenge, and this is up for grabs, because some people would think that because you're creative and it's your core, you shouldn't have a calendar because you're going against what you do. I would maybe tend not to agree with that. And we had a conversation on this yesterday.
Yeah.
If you tend to be creative and tend maybe to lose track of time and tend maybe not to finish off projects, having the structure in place will actually, it's like a scaffolding. It will help you to ensure that you finish those projects and still allow you to be creative. So you're just putting the systems in place around you. So it's when you do fall off the wagon or you do wobble ever so slightly, there's a support structure in place. I think that's a really, really important point to make. That I know myself, yes, in the past, I would have a tendency, I can really relate to what you're saying, Adrian, to fall off the wagon and to have 10 plates going at one time. If I have 10 of them going, sure, I can have 11 going. And sure, if 11 going, I can have 12 going. Sure, this is great crack. And sure, if 5 of them fall down there, sure, geez, we've 6 of them going here, sure, in the grand. And I just found myself, and from listening to maybe people that are a lot more, I suppose, have a lot more expertise on this than I have, that when you do put the structures around you, when you are in the focused mindset, I suppose, environment, when you have that focused mindset, you put the structures in place. So it's when you do happen to get creative and fall off the wagon, they're there for you.
Absolutely.
I think it's a really important point, and it's helped me I can talk about myself. It's helped me greatly to maintain focus on what I'm supposed to be doing rather than tearing off, as you said, like Confucius. If you're chasing two rabbits, you go off in different directions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So look, if anybody wants a hand on that, look, we can talk some other day about that, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Having Google Diary, and sure, with phones nowadays, they all sync up and it works really well.
100%. Yeah.
So I suppose you touched on it earlier, Adrian, about the role of habits and about creating good habits in your day. So again, some very, very simple examples around this, and I'm sure most people that are on the call are going to be aware of this. The idea of having like having a good morning habit, having a good habit during the day. So like I know myself from eating, if I don't prep my food, or if I don't bring a lunch with me to work, and if I find that we'll say instead of 1 o'clock and I go to 2 o'clock and then at 1:30 I haven't eaten, and if you're hungry, what's the tendency? The tendency is to go for the crap food and you're not prepared. So now I try and as much as I possibly can have the right food prepped for myself, so I get into good habits and you eat correctly. Like that's just a given, really. So it's about creating the right habits around your lifestyle, around your self-management, which in turn will lead into good time management. So take, for instance, we touched on it earlier on, like on a Sunday evening, maybe sitting down for 10 or 15 minutes before you're watching Dancing with the Stars or whatever else floats your boat. I know you're big into that, Adrian, so I just said I'd drop that in there. So sit down maybe at half 7 or 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night, wherever it is, right? And sit down with your partner, whoever you're going to sit down and say, look, what's the week looking like? Have we got a lot on this week? What's actually coming at us? So you're actually planning a little bit and say, look, maybe we can do that and we can't do that, or we can't put our hands around the world this week, or we have to park something that's important but not urgent and we push it back a week. So at least it's removing that anxiety, removing that stress. And again, that's real self-management. So the role of habits in self-management is absolutely crucial. I could talk about it all day, but I couldn't emphasize it enough. And that brings us on to maybe where we are at the moment, and I touched on this at the start. Taking time out to reflect. I think where we are at the moment, we're in very strange times, and there's a lot of stress, anxiety. People are going through tough times, and there's a lot of change. People are minding kids at home. There's a lot going on. However, we can flip it on its head for a moment. We actually have a phenomenal opportunity to reflect on what we've been doing for our previous maybe 6, 8, 12 months, 10, 20 years. Stop the train. Say, okay, how am I getting on financially? How am I getting on in my career? What are my relationships like with my spouses, my partner, my brothers, my sisters, my work colleagues? Am I talking about yourself, Adrian, with health and fitness goals? Like, what are my health goals? What were my health goals a month ago? What are my health goals now? Based on the pandemic is here at the moment, do I want to be in a better situation if something like this happens again? So it's a really, really good time to sit back and discuss it with experts. So like in the health and fitness, I'm not trying to promote you, Adrian, here, but like sitting back, contacting Adrian, going, Adrian, look, you know what? I've probably fallen off the wagon there for the last 6 months or whatever else. Now's the chance again. I'm going to do that marathon, or I'm going to do whatever. Can you give me some guidance on that? There's loads of people out there, free advice. It's the simple advice, is the free advice for me anyway. And sit down with an expert in that area and say, okay, I want to improve in this area and I want to get better in it. And this is where I want to be in 6 or 8 or 12 months' time. So this time that we're going through at the moment, I think it's almost like a great leveler. It's a resetting. So maybe reset your whole self-management, set your time management. So when you go back to normal, whatever normal is in a couple of months' time or whatever it is, that you'll have a new normal. You'll have a new self-management system in place, a new time management system in place, and you're probably going to be in a better position. So, Adrian, I'm sure you'll be able to add to what I'm saying there.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and I suppose whether we consciously or subconsciously know it, like every decision comes back to a values decision, and
Great, yeah.
our actions are always going to be a reflection of our deepest values. So when you spoke about that self-awareness at the start, I think like if you could get in touch with your core values, this is a perfect time to do so, a really good time to do so, because in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, we get caught up and we almost drown in the activities that are occupying our time. Now we're not commuting. Now we don't have You know what I mean? We don't have to do the mundane tasks like sit in traffic or, you know what I mean, fill petrol in the car and blah, blah, blah. So we do have that time. And I think just to sit down and do an audit, on what your value system is, you know, it could be starting by writing out every value you know, and all of a sudden start to circle what means something to you, what you would like something to look like. You know what I mean? It's because your values shape your self-image, and they shape your belief system. Like everything comes down to your values. If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for everything. I always firmly believe that. And I think that once you can define your core values, you write them down on your piece of paper, you can put them down on your weekly Google calendar, and every decision then, you always have a reference point. You know, you always have a reference point. Well, okay, if my goal here is to, you know what I mean, just get in better shape, then do I value that? Yes or no? Then do I value good food? Then, you know what I mean, do I value spending my disposable income on better quality food? And blah, blah, blah. And you know what I mean? Then you have, I think, I won't even call it, you know, you have a reference point, I think, or a benchmark for you to base your decisions on.
I think that's what you just said. I couldn't agree more with it. One of the things I would just touch on, Adrian, is that I think people, they probably have their values pretty clear, but we all haven't been living our values because we're on this roller coaster and this hamster wheel. And that's the biggest, I suppose, incongruency that exists, is that we know what we want, we know what it looks like, but we just can't seem to get there because we're too busy going. And like, I think that creates anxiety and stress when you're living this incongruent lifestyle. It's this, like, there's this gap and divide that you know what you want. Like some people, I would suggest that ourselves and on the call, we probably know what we want, but we can't get there because we're going so fast. And there's so much coming at us, and we're tired, we're this, or we're trying to fit in so much. So this moment in time, this couple of weeks, I think they're a brilliant time. Yeah, there's fear there at the moment, but taking time to reflect and reassess, it's a powerful thing to do. So
Absolutely.
couldn't agree more. Actually, just to touch on it there, Adrian, that if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. That's actually a country and western song. I knew you were into the old country and western stuff, Adrian. So
you poor old Kenny Rogers and all passed away.
You might post up that song later on, Adrian.
There's not a morning I don't sing it.
So I suppose this moves us on. I suppose we're coming to the end here now, right? I suppose it's more about goals and action planning, and looking again. I know some people are not into goals, and look, that's 100%, absolutely. That's your belief system, and run with that. I suppose for me, I was that person maybe 9 or 10 years ago that I wasn't into goals, and there was a fear of setting goals because I probably wouldn't have hit the goals, or I'd set the goals in December, and I'd open the book again the following December and wonder why I didn't hit the goals, and going, Jesus, I had a grand goal there now or whatever. But look, that was the way I think a lot of us did it in the past. One of the things around goals now, where I feel quite strongly, and I suppose it's a more empathetic way of looking at it, is I think we should all have some sort of goals. And I'm talking about financial goals, but maybe the health goals, or maybe the energy goals, or the family goals, or the downtime goals, or you time goals, or whatever you want to have yourself as goals. And then ideally, we should be doing something every single week and month, and if you want to bring it back today, to inch us closer to that goal. So if it's just take, for instance, a 5K, and you want to be able to run a 5K by the end of the year, there's no point saying, well, I'll start in June, or I'll start in July, or I'll start in August. Why don't we start now in the first couple of days of January and do maybe 100 meters or do 200 meters? So that's your goal for the first couple of weeks. So it's a progressive goal. So you have your process, you have your performance, and your outcome goals. And to me, it's really important that if you can actually have your week planned, so your time management, your self-management is planned around your goal system for the year, and you're inching closer to those goals on a weekly basis, that's a savage buzz. That really is the ultimate for me. So if you're actually going after and making small, steady progress towards your goals on a weekly or monthly basis, that gives massive energy. It inspires you, it empowers you, and you know those people who are living in that space, and there's a great buzz off them. So for me, having that, I suppose, those couple of goals, and again, I'm sure, Adrian, you help people on that around their fitness goals. But having that, what does somebody want to achieve? So somebody walks into your gym, there are 10 people could walk in, they all might want to achieve something different. So you don't assume anything, but it's whatever they want to achieve, you'll help them with that achievement. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, all right, so if we just take it back to fitness for a second, I think the biggest issue, if I want to call it an issue, is people treat change as an event, but it's not an event, it's a process. It's something that happens over time. And I'll give you a simple, I'll give you a really simple example. So, someone follows Operation Transformation in January, okay? And they jump up on the scales the first week in January. And let's just say they're arbitrary 90 kilos, okay? And they meet with half the community on the Sunday, and they do the walk, and they're following a leader and all that jazz. And a week later, they jump up on the scales and they lose a kilo. And they have this event. They're going to weigh themselves every week, okay? And they have a system, so to speak, because they have a kind of a nutrition plan, and they have someone to follow, and blah, blah, blah. And then the following week, they jump up on the scales and they're down half a kilo. And there's something in their head that says, that's not as good as I was the week before, but sure, look, it's okay. It's 1.5 kilos in 2 weeks. And they move on and they continue to do what they do. And then they notice after 3 weeks that the numbers are starting to drop and there wasn't as many people there. And then by the time they come to the third week, they jump on the scales into the same week, as the same weight as they were the week before. And all of a sudden they start thinking, oh, Jen, maybe, and this is where their self-image kicks in. And this is where they haven't made a change on a deeper level than just this number on the scales. And all of a sudden they start to think, maybe I'm not athletic enough, or I'm 50 now, and maybe I have 3 kids. The doubt creeps in. The biggest issue is that they've treated change as an event and not a process. And they have bought into that concept, and they have fell to that concept of instant gratification. And unfortunately, instant gratification has left the whole world feeling like crap. And it's, whether we know it or not, you know what I mean, we really have to make that change on a deeper level. You know what I mean? We really have to start thinking beyond, you know what I mean? It's an event, and if I win, I win. And come here, the fitness industry drove this, by the way, because, it's marketed in this way, like it's, drop a dress size, win a this, win a that. It's all these external, these carrots that are handed in front of people. And then when people fail, they end up failing and mentally and psychologically feeling worse than they were before they started. And what they're doing is they're reinforcing failure. And to me, the philosophy of better than yesterday, just waking up every morning thinking, right, I'm going to be better than I was the day before. So just better than yesterday.
Yeah.
That concept, that paradigm of better than yesterday would serve humanity so much more than you only live once. You only live once means, sure, come on, let's do it, and we'll worry about tomorrow. But if you wake up thinking, right, or if you go to bed thinking, right, I'm going to be just that little bit better than I was the day before, then incrementally, through the virtue of time, you become a better person. Mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, look, you've nailed it, Adrian. I think and the challenge with goal setting is that there's no balance. We either hit the goal straight away, or we don't hit it. So we're either brilliant or we're crap. Like, this is not an upward curve process. Like goals, there's ups and downs, and I think we have to be kind enough to ourselves as well. That, like, you have good days, you have bad days, you have days where things won't go well, and other days things you don't put half the effort in and things go very well. So that's just the way life is, and we have to deal with, I suppose, families, and you have to deal with kids and late nights and whatever else. So I suppose what I'm trying to say here is that these are just little tips, I suppose, and tools that you should use. I'm not saying it's 100% foolproof, but it's to just put some structure around what you're already doing, and it does work. Finally, I suppose there's a slide I wanted to put in myself, because I think it's a very, very important slide, especially in the times we're in. It's to ask ourselves the question, what is success to me? So it's a tough question. It's something that I would suggest that you don't answer within 10 minutes. But when we talk about, I've asked this question, I did this as a kind of a straw poll with a classroom of master's graduates, and there was 32 in the class, and I gave them this particular slide, and I said, look, I'm going to give you 7 minutes to actually fill out this slide. So I handed them out the the actual sheet. And I said, I just want you, whatever comes into your head first, I says, write it down, fill the boxes, and fill down a couple of key actions or key deliverables on the successful areas of your life. And I said, I'm giving you 7 minutes. And the reason I'm giving you 7 minutes, I just want to whatever comes into your head for a start. What was really interesting back from me, Adrian, was that I think it was around 60% of the people focused on finance. Right? Now, the demographic of people was from around 30 to maybe mid-40s. But when I asked them to go home, take the blank sheet with them, and to maybe send me back a filled out sheet in the space of a week or two, it was incredibly different. When people actually took the time out to figure out what was success to them, they actually came back with an awful lot deeper stuff around relationships, health, energy, hobbies, pastimes, downtime, reconnecting, career. But the finance went way down. And I suppose what they call the glass balls came up. So I suppose what I'm just throwing out to anyone that's on the call, I can send you this sheet, Adrian, myself, and send it on to you, and you can circulate it if people want it. That it's a very important exercise. So, for example, how you'd use it is you might put in family here. So what are the 3 or 4 key things that you will say to yourself, if I hit those, I'll be successful with my family? You might be spending time, holidays, or wherever else. Then you might put in finances over here. You might put in fitness here. So if I'd say to you, Adrian, in 5 years' time, how will you know you've been a success in the last 5 years around fitness? That'll apply to yourself. Then I might say, what are your energy levels at? How will you know you've been a success? Then I might say, how is your, it might be your community work. So everyone will have different areas, different pillars. But it's when you've that done, I think if you can shape your week and your time management and your self-management and bring in areas of this into your week, that's going to be hugely beneficial. And that's about the size of it, Adrian.
Donal, that's excellent. It really is. Do you know, Donny, I love our chats. They always they always start as a 15-minute call, and they
and they go off in tangents. I know.
They go off in tangents, but like there's so much in that. It's phenomenal, and you know, I really am massively grateful for you for sharing it. And you know, I don't say this lightly, but if people sat down and watched this and applied it, it could change their life, and it really could change their life. You know, it's not that you or I have a golden bullet or anything like that, and it's not that we're reinventing the wheel here. It's just a matter of putting together, you know, some really valuable pieces of information and building an awareness around yourself, and from there growing forward and winning each day into the week and into the years, defined by the person you want to be and the person you want to become.
100%. I suppose just with it, Adrian, I suppose this is like a health warning with it, is that this isn't something that I suppose that you're going to get right straight away. It's something that you play with. Something you almost enjoy when you're going through what is success to me, and you're trying to change your self-management. Like, don't be hard on ourselves and say, geez, if I don't have this sorted within a week, well, you know, I'm a failure. It's not about that. It's about maybe exactly what you said earlier on, small incremental success around building a self-management system, building a time management system, building a system which is success to you, building a goal system, but doing it over a period of time and not to rush it. And to almost enjoy the process of it. I think you get an awful lot more out of it, and the value that you pull out of your own head, because all the ideas are up here within our own heads, the value you'll bring will be much, much bigger than just trying to rush this process.
Yeah. And as parents, when we implement this, we give permission for the people around us to become more as well, don't we?
Brilliant. I couldn't have said it better myself. There's nothing to add to that, Adrian.
Donal, thank you very much, my man.
100%. Most enjoyable, Adrian. Take care.
Absolutely. Cheers, Donny.
Bye-bye.